in a crowded Salford pub in Greater Manchester that was filled with construction workers, street dealers, mums and dads, gang members, locals, who all tried to reset from a hard working week. The clang of pint glasses were constant, along with the cry of laughter and snorts and cackles. And right there, a man was caged, and there were no witnesses. There was also drug use to keep the drinks flowing too. Now, the crime scene was the Wellington pub on Regent Street in Salford, and the victim was 37-year-old Lee Erdmann, who was a dad of 5 and well known in Salford. According to Lee's own mum Patricia, there had been over 30 confirmed people in the pub at the time her son was caged, even mothers, but yet nobody had seen anything. Now, Lee had spent the evening on Saturday the 9th of September and Sunday the 10th of September 2011 at the Wellington pub in what was described as something of a ritual. Plain and simple, Lee needed a drink. Now, just before 2:50 a.m, Lee had been perched at the bar, a glass in one hand, and was speaking to a fellow drinker. The two men had spent 30 minutes convening with each other, laughing and joking. Now, according to a witness, in the lead up to the end, there were no raised voices, no arguments, nor confrontation. In fact, witnesses described Lee as looking relaxed and comfortable, despite the fact that he had never been to the Wellington pub before. Now, what he didn't know was in a split second the Wellington pub was turned on its head and nothing made sense. The conversation between Lee and the drinker stopped, and in that time, the drinker had been on his phone sending a text message to tell an associate to bring in a pistol. It was a simple instruction. So, as Lee stepped aside and then turned to go towards the bathroom, the drinker who Lee had been talking to had raised his pistol and then took aim at Lee's large frame and then squeezed. Lee was struck twice, once in the back, and as he crashed and tumbled to the floor, staring upwards on his back and staring at the ceiling that was beige in colour, Lee was struck for a second time, this time in the chest. The fact that a dad of 5 could be so brutally executed by someone Lee had spoken to moments ago, where they had shared a conversation lasting 30 minutes, spoke volumes. So content and confident was Lee's case was that he did not wear a mask or a balaclava. Lee was severely injured. Now, the person responsible for this then stepped forward over Lee and then placed a boot in Lee's face. Now, despite over 30 people being in the Wellington pub at the time, Lee Erdman was brutally caged, and there were no witnesses because they were already very slow and unresponsive. In less than 24 hours, police already had their prime suspect. They knew the name of the gang member, who was part of an Old Saw-based gang. However, what happened was, when police went to try to secure CCTV from the Wellington pub, they were left dismayed and disheartened and angry to find out that the CCTV hard drive had been confirmed to have already been taken, i.e. it was stolen. Now, without that CCTV evidence, they were unable to charge anyone with the crime. So police canvassed the area and also tried to speak to witnesses who were inside the pub at the time. However, police were met with a wall of silence, and there was very good reason. Because after Lee was taken to the Royal Infirmary Hospital where he was declared dead, police found out that there had been graffiti at a nearby estate called the Aldsall Estate, and it gave a warning to civilians and locals that if they talked to the police, they could be found to be unalive too. And that's why nobody was willing to talk to the police. And this ensured that Lee's family world had been ripped apart. Now, rather than wither and cry herself to sleep, Lee Erdmann's mum, Patricia, had made public appeals, asking for the drinkers who were in the pub on Sunday the 10th of September and watched in full view as a man who refused to hide his face pulled out his pistol and then killed her son dead, and then walked out of the pub freely to come forward to do the right thing. Patricia was quoted as saying, "You know who did it, come forward." Now, police even offered a £50,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the person responsible. Now, despite police believing again they knew who did this, a detail that was explored just 24 hours after the shooting, police were unable to put the man on trial or disclose his name, as again, no witnesses had still come forward, and vital evidence like CCTV inside the Wellington pub was stolen and it could not be found. Now, the M of Lee Erdmann showcased just how powerful and authority that the gang wielded over the local community. Now, some people say that Lee was caged because he had been in the wrong pub, a pub that was controlled by trig-happy members of the Oldsaw-based crime gang. Now, police say that the same gang had been responsible for at least 4 other similar incidences. Now, the sad thing about this was, Lee Erdman was an innocent casualty. Lee had never been to the Wellington pub before. He used to go to other pubs like the Hyde Park Corner, where he was caught on CCTV going earlier. However, he had only gone to the Wellington pub because he was feeling sad and low after it was coming to the birthday of his baby daughter who was no longer here, and he wanted to remember her over a drink. Still to this day, no one has been convicted of the M of Lee Erdmann. Let me know your thoughts. Stay safe.